and welcome to another episode of Decline Invite. I'm your host, the extroverted IT leader, Ryan Drumheller. And everyone's talking about AI, but most companies aren't actually ready for it. Not because of AI itself, but because of everything behind it. Today, I'm joined by Matt Zoltal. Matt is the Global Director of Strategy and Operations and a telepath, and he works in a space most companies don't think about until things start going wrong. The data, the integration, everything that sits behind AI is actually working. He spent years helping organizations untangle messy, disconnected systems and turn them into something structured, secure, compliant, and scalable, especially in environments where you don't get a second chance, where the data matters and where mistakes carry real risk. And what I like about Matt's perspective is he's not talking about AI at a high level. He's focused on what actually has to be in place for it to work in the real world. So, Matt, welcome to the show, and I appreciate you doing this and being here today.
Ryan, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I think you really nailed something there. AI is obviously supposed to help us save a lot of time, but I think this is exactly where distractions can come up really quickly. So yeah, being not just ready for it, but taking it to the next level, production ready. That's really where everything falls apart or can go right if you set up correctly. Yeah, great to be on. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to dive deep into all kinds of AI oriented questions today. So, buckle up, everybody. So, starting off, I like to do a few quick icebreakers. So, the very first one, what is one AI buzzword that you'd retire immediately?
Well, that is a great question. Yeah, look, Ryan, it's not just one buzzword. It's really this feeling of everything is AI is magically making everything ready. That is really one of the things that we see are very much not the case. So readiness is one of the biggest challenges that companies are seeing at the moment. That's the absolute reality here. So projects are seldomly moving out of a sandbox environment, and that for the most part is the AI readiness itself isn't quite where it needs to be. Why? Because the data needs to be at the right place at the right time. In sandbox environments, everything's nicely defined. That's easy to predict. You know what's going on. When it comes to other environments, live environments, you just don't know what live data you're going to be getting.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially that line when you said that most companies aren't ready for it. I don't know, like the percentage of companies that are ready for it is probably very small, from what I've seen. So clearly, I think we're just running full speed ahead and just throwing things into the wall, so to speak. And it's going to be interesting to see kind of what the industry looks like here in the next couple of years with that kind of movement that we're having there.
Yeah, and not just industries, countries are in some cases more affected by it than others, right? Rand Corporation recently, for example, analyzed 2,500 roughly enterprise businesses, and only about like less than 20% ended up achieving or exceeding their own objectives. Now, obviously, each company can choose their own objectives, so it's nice to see that or interesting, probably worrying to see that only about 20% admit to themselves that they've actually achieved their own goals. And it really comes to a couple of things. The most AI projects, to the extent of about 60 billion US dollars lost in investments, are abandoned. So these are AI projects abandoned before production. So there's no data foundation is one of the main reasons of it. About a quarter of these companies ended up having, a completed project, but it turns out that the data and quality was so poor that they ended up not using it in production. And this is something we see the most. And that's really moving out of the sandbox environment, as I said earlier, into a production environment. Now, here, obviously other factors such as cost, etc., coming in. And for the most part, underlyingly, poor integration is really the biggest issue. One other thing is a couple of years ago, actually, Gartner predicted, rightfully so, it turned out, that about 60%, as I said earlier, of AI projects that resulted in roughly 60 billion US dollars would be scrapped throughout this year. So they did that, I think, like a year or something ago. So yeah, the 20% that are currently ready, for the most part, they're sitting in software and technology firms. And they've got a couple of enterprises there as well, but I'm sure we're all seeing the same news. There's various analysts and banks, etc., that are ultimately saying, that they're worried about too much money being invested into AI because people want the shiny thing, right? I mean, if you go and you want to buy a new appliance, I always make that analogy. You want the plumbed fridge. You want the fridge that has the ice maker in it, that's got the smoothie maker inside. Like, that is what you want. You don't in that moment notice or care that that needs a plumbing connection. So your fridge needs to be connected to fresh water, for example. And it's the same thing with applications. Applications just need to be connected to something else. And yeah, so that's kind of where the plumbing analogy often comes in. Because again, if you wanted to buy the connected fridge, or even if you were to buy an apartment, you don't actually care about the plumbing work. You expect it to be there, but it becomes a major issue when it starts leaking through the ceiling. And you certainly don't want that in production environments, and especially not with sensitive information.
Yeah, I think that is a very, very good point. That I mean, it's expected to just work, right? I'm getting this integration or this project done. I'm not thinking about the rest of the stuff because it's just expected, and it can be done. Like to your point, just like your plumbing analogy, if it's not done right, though, I mean, you start having messes all over the place. And to your point, in a business environment, that can mean absolute worst case scenario that could absolutely destroy your company. Not to heighten the senses, but I've been seeing more articles along the lines of what you're speaking to right now, and we're not highlighting that kind of behavior enough. It's like your point, the shiny toy, AI, like here's all the good stuff, but the reality is there's a lot of bad stuff happening right now that we're kind of just sweeping under the rug or from human error. We're just setting it and forgetting it and thinking it's just going to take care of itself, and it doesn't, or it learns and changes its
It
behaviors.
learns, it changes. That's right.
Yeah.
And in no 2 weeks at the moment in the world of AI seem to be the same, because something else comes up, another leak comes up, source code gets leaked, whatever else is happening. And look, I mean, it's a conversation I had the other day. We're at the infancy still of really what's possible. And depending on which side of the fence you are here, you can either be very much for it, or there seem to be only two camps. I feel people that are all in with it and people that are very hesitant when it comes to it. So I'm all for AI, but it just needs to be governed right, and it needs to be set up correctly. I would love for more businesses, especially medium. The biggest risk AI brings is actually to the larger organizations, because I mean that was smaller, in some cases almost headless organizations can now do the same output than larger organizations with big teams have. You're almost at a point of diminishing returns when it comes to people in the project equation. But what's remarkable is that not just that smaller organizations can suddenly achieve so much more. I think what's remarkable is that some of the larger organizations are just still stuck in their old ways, and I don't want to say are at risk of disrupting themselves, but some of them are, because they've got so much potential to really push it ahead. But now, really what comes down is trying to protect revenue as much as possible. And therefore, contractual terms are being changed and or tightened in order to prevent people from leaving en masse. We've seen this across various different ecosystems, whether it's, popular CRM systems to others. They're seriously worried about their top line revenue literally disappearing in the next couple of years. So I don't think we're 100% there yet, but the risk is suddenly there.
Yeah, and you hit a one topic that I've been like I put a webinar on before of just AI governance itself. Is, man, have I seen a lot of decisions get made, and it was like turned it on and let it loose and away it went, and nobody's watching this thing. Nobody's making sure that we've got checks and balances and guardrails, and that's where the human part comes into play, right? Not every project needs AI. If you have a good reason and there's going to be benefits and return on value, then that's a great project to present for its use case for. But it's like what you said. I either see everyone that's all in, we're going to do it, we're going to jam it into everything, or the businesses that I've directly talked to were absolutely scared and terrified and had a bunch of legacy data and legacy hardware even, and it's like, what do we do with all of this? And they're doing nothing, which in return, then you're having your employees just randomly use a personal AI, and I cringe at that. Of what kind of security data loss are you now enacting by not trying to govern it and get on top of it?
And it's such an obvious one to get right. Honestly, the legacy, we work a lot with organizations that have a lot of legacy data. At its core, we're a data integration platform that really focuses on connecting anything with another, right? So for the most part, these are legacy systems. They're always involved, especially in, larger organizations. Any organization to some extent has legacy data, whether that just sits in a spreadsheet or a Google Drive, depends on, whether it's a more modern legacy or, former legacy. Now, the data that sits on these legacy servers you were just talking about, that really carries a lot of gold for AI. And from my perspective, that's actually the most interesting. These are the most interesting use cases, because what you have there are tons of legacy data that can be used for the next 10 years or so in order to make more meaningful predictions for what's happening in the future. Now, if that is properly connected, if that's properly connected to all sorts of AI systems, you suddenly have the opportunity not just to learn from the past properly, you really giving yourself significant competitive edge, because also the people that have been associated to that legacy data, that have been guarding the server that's been sitting in the side with sticky tape on saying do not turn off. At some point, they may leave the organization also because they've served their time. And, at some point people want to retire, and that's all well and good. Now, that information and the processes with that and how all of that's running, that may disappear with them. So I think there's a significant opportunity here right now to take all of that in, but to your point, Ryan, really make sure that the governance is in place and there's proper guardrails. So it's actually an easy thing you can set up. Sometimes in the LLMs it's not, but you can use tools and systems. I mean, we've even got a flow in it where on the top part you're engaging with an LLM, but then it runs through guardrails to understand, first of all, is this PII compliance, personal identifiable information? If yes, it gets filtered out. All of that then happens in an on-premises environment, so that data obviously doesn't leave the organization itself. To your point again, making sure compliance is in place. From here, the security check also needs to take place. Does the request actually violate policies or not? Like, are you asking for the CEO's salary, for example, either directly or in a prompt hacking way? That needs to be filtered out and responded with a nice try. Ask me a proper question. But once it goes through, you then have multiple different paths. Related inquiries might be dealt with a completely different AI model than generic questions or engineering questions or whatever else the organization does. So all of that can be properly set up, but it needs to be set up correctly. Guardrails need to be in place. Having legacy information is like, that is your digital gold. So if you can really turn that into not just your own long-lasting brain within the organization itself, but on top of that, being able to take that information to the next level and suddenly use AI to make connections that over the last 30 years of being in business, nobody was able to make these connections. From my point of view, that is a massive win.
And you said a couple things that I'm so glad to hear, because there's one success story. I normally get asked questions of like, "Have you ever seen AI, be done properly?" And I say, "Yeah, I actually started on the wrong end of that. I started out seeing it be done properly, and then worked with a lot of organizations that didn't." And the done properly part is a lot that you described too, about making sure that any sensitive information isn't getting out. And that goes all the way back to making sure that your data is clean is on top of that, right? As soon as you turn AI on, and these were lessons learned properly by the IT team to not let anybody know they even had this and they were seeing what it could touch or whatever. Yeah, it got a hold of everything, right? Like everything that it could actually find and see. Yeah, salaries, sensitive docs, everything. They had to go in and make sure that they're actually properly tagging things, setting up those rules, doing the actual governance that you're speaking towards. And is so great to hear another organization is also doing that, because a lot of organizations, and here's the scary part, they're not, or they don't have the knowledge. And I think that a lot of IT orgs right now are probably getting exposed with AI to a little degree because they don't know how to, or they need help, or now they realize they need a consultant and the AI wasn't cheap because now they had to go get that. It's a lot of variables right now, and the right way is absolutely what you just said. Like, you need to make sure you're protecting the company's assets first and foremost before then you can actually make those gains, because as soon as the company assets are out, what gains did you make, right? At that point.
Yeah, yeah, and also, when it comes to data leaks, etc., I think that there are various stats all over the world saying that I think 95% plus of enterprises have suffered some sort of serious AI incident. I would argue it's 100% because at some point, Bob and Peter have used a personal ChatGPT and uploaded, various spreadsheets into it. Free version, obviously, of ChatGPT, putting that entire information ultimately into the model for ongoing training unknowingly, but this is ultimately what happens. So as a result, there are various issues that really have to be addressed head on. Now, and I think this puts us to another interesting part, and that's regulatory exposure that's really starting to explode in that world, right? So everyone's talking about the EU AI Act. You've got up to $35 million in fines, up to 7% of global turnover. Pretty sure it's the higher one of the two. Ultimately, these are serious fines. There's some other ones actually. So we work a lot in Asia as well. So in the US, Europe, and in Asia a lot. It turns out the AI Act in Korea is even tougher. Just even small breaches are being fined with approximately 20,000 US dollars each, but they accumulate super quickly. Yeah. So on the one side, you've got the industry really wanting to produce better products. The consumers are distracted, and businesses by the next shiny thing because that's what they want. Underlyingly, you obviously need to have the data governance in place in order to support all of this. And on top of this all, regulatory bodies, especially overseas, it's more of a thing outside of the US at the moment, but nonetheless, companies that are engaging globally are still governed by it. And as a result, especially the EU AI Act kind of becomes a de facto global law because there's so many companies that in one way or another are dealing with the European Union. And so as a result, it kind of becomes the frameworks that are being put in place now, forcefully nonetheless, are very much becoming a little bit of a new global standard here now. So let's see where this goes, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be a number of landmark AI fines, especially coming out of the EU. I'm pretty sure that's going to come in the next couple of months and years.
Yeah, and the EU GDPR, comes to mind, right? Like they seem to be always wanting to lead, which I think is great because you look at the US for, a lot of the founders are here. You're not having to be governed themselves, I guess, so to speak. And that trickles then down to the businesses, and they're just kind of left out there to do whatever they want. And with at least the European side of things, it forces, like you said, a lot of businesses to have to get their acts together. If you're going to do any kind of international business at that point, you kind of having to adopt pretty much your whole business to those standards, which are a pretty high standard. I worked myself out of the UK recently. It was my last corporate position that I worked. And it was an amazing eye-opening experience for me being an American and never having worked directly. I reported directly to Europe, did the quarterly flights and everything into London. And it is a very different eye-opening experience for me that I'll treasure because it really opened my world to be like, wow, I now feel so worried about so many American businesses, especially now when you're talking about acts coming with AI. And yeah, it was going to come. It made sense. And the scary thing is when we're talking on a cybersecurity level, they're really scrambling because they're basically fighting AI with AI, and that is a scary thing to think about at the end of the day. I don't have a lot of positive words that I would say at the moment, and I think you're absolutely right. We're gonna see a lot of news stories on the negative train, or a lot of exposures, a lot of kind of the people that knew are going to be like, yeah, we knew if this was this was going to happen. But the people that have just been looking at AI with rosy sunglasses and rainbows and everything, they're going to be shocked, I think, to see that it's that rampant. I think, to your point.
Yeah, and maybe quickly for the audience as well, key and core difference obviously between GDPR, which it really focuses on data privacy protection, and then the AI Act, which really acts as an AI safety check and like risk classification model. So, you can, well, first of all, you need to comply with both, but in the end you get fined separately. Yeah, look, I mean, to your point, Ryan, let's see what's happening on that front, but it's good that there's some regulation in place. On the other side, the EU especially needs to be careful that they don't disrupt their own innovation when it comes to pumping the brakes too hard. That's the other end of it. But at the end of the day, each policy, it doesn't matter what policy it is, it's always lags behind current innovation. So innovation will always be ahead of it, and then policy obviously follows at some point. Now, the underlying if there's only one takeaway from my point of view for the audience here, it'll be make sure that whatever information that you wouldn't want to be plastering outside of your business, make sure that doesn't end up in non-governed AI models. Because if it does, ultimately your competition will get access to it. Some startup you haven't even thought of just yet is going to use it to disrupt you. Your information is really the currency that feeds these tokens, which, at the moment it's just hard to predict what's coming out of it. And no one knows what your information is ultimately being used for. In the best case scenario, it's anonymized. In the worst case scenario, you're literally feeding your competitor unknowingly. So to anyone using AI models, they're fantastic. Make sure they align with your company policies, and make sure any of the privacy settings are obviously turned on, so that, by the way, this is something you have to opt out of. So in each settings, you can elect to ensure that the data is not used for training. Make sure you use that. Best case scenario, though, you connect with your IT departments and see what you can use. And ideally, you're using a company profile, because then also you've got access to all the information that you don't have to upload anymore. So all the stuff, if it's set up correctly, is already there. If not, we can help.
Yeah, all the way back to governance. We swung it all the way there. And yeah, the scary thing is if you have questions about if your organization is already doing that or not. I mean, go ahead and ask, but don't be surprised in either which way, because I think as fast as AI is changing,
Correct.
they're trying to get a hold of all of these things and govern them. And AI is now being inserted into every single thing that is out there. So it becomes a chore to try to get a hold of. And being from that side of the fence, I feel really sorry these days of all of the IT juniors and support and the engineers, all the individuals who are having to grab all of these AI cattle, so to speak, and kind of wrangle them back in. And um, it's just an uphill battle properly, like what you said. Just try to do your best and show them what you've done if you did anything
And
else.
also don't be disappointed if there's no straightforward AI policy that your organization has today, because it has to be fluid at the moment. And
Yeah.
a tool that might be approved today may not be approved again in the next 2 weeks or maybe 2 months, depending on we will see a lot of changes there still. If there's one thing that's certainly for sure, obviously AI is disruptive when it comes to many things in positive or negative ways, depending on how you want to look at it, but nonetheless disruptive. I feel it's got tons of opportunities, and overall we're going to be, as humanity, we're going to win out of it, but it needs to be used in the right environment as well. Now, all of that is more of a larger conversation. What really matters in the work environments at the moment is try to use AI to your advantage, but make sure that it aligns with internal policies. If internal policies don't exist yet, what a unique opportunity for you to actually help be part of that, because you could become and be part of this internal AI board of advisors, of sort of saying, okay, this is what we want, this is what we need. Ask the people on the ground. Have better water cooler conversations in terms of what is it that people would like to use AI for. Because I can guarantee you, HR is overwhelmed, The board only has a directive that they need to have AI in there, but they've got no idea where to start and what to do. As a result, they're getting expensive consultants to come in, and guess what? Consultants never leave the boardroom, and at the end of the day, all the ideas that are really good, they're happening at grassroots level. Nobody talks to them, and unfortunately, the people that have the best ideas are afraid to speak up because they're thinking, oh, what if my boss doesn't like the idea? So you need to have these grassroots conversations. And one other thing, the best AI implementations that we've done are really always at grassroots level every single time. So recently, example, we've completely built out. So on the one side, we do data integration, but we also help build bespoke models that then use AI in it. In this case here, it was a very well-known, well, actually a German innovation. They do heated wallpaper. They ended up on Shark Tank, or the German version of that is Lion's Den. Long story short, they have partner portal that they needed in order to manage all their installation partners. So think of wallpaper that has infrared heating built in. It's so safe that it's actually used in aircrafts as well. So all the Airbus A350s are currently being refitted with it. A few other aircrafts as well. So ultimately, quick exploration aircrafts in the front of the aircraft are fly a lot. It's always very cold. In the back of it, lots of people, it's always very warm. So you've got different issues at the front versus the back. Now, anyways, these guys have lots of installation partners and needed to manage that. The standard answer initially for them would have been a custom built on the current CRM that they're using, left to be unnamed, and that was really expensive to build. So instead, they said, look, I mean, what we really want is the partners self-serving themselves. They upload floor plans, all of that gets analyzed by AI, and we make it as easy as possible for an installation partner who has no idea about the or limited initially idea about this revolutionary product that they're putting to market. How can they become the expert as quickly as possible? Well, brilliant. AI comes in. We've helped them build that tool. It's a dedicated partner tool completely with that. But then it's integrated, and that's where connection comes in again, and where IntelliIPAS from a data integration company comes in as well. We then ultimately connect all these different, all the information that's either needed externally to help the partners and or the information that's coming in to support the partners to make better sales at the end of the day. All of that then gets connected with another. So yeah, and the idea, back to the grassroots, that idea came from the ground. Like, that wasn't a boardroom decision. That was more of a, we had a couple of spreadsheets and we kind of need a better system. We're growing internationally. How can we have a better tool in place? So this was just a natural conversation that ultimately led to, okay, let's make sure AI sits in there. Let's make sure we help enable new use cases as a result of it. And final point, make sure underlyingly the infrastructure is in place so that not just that AI model can benefit from it, but also others in the future can really benefit from that same architectural underlying plumbing work. Because in the end, data is no different to water. It just has to flow. And when you're in your bathroom and you're pressing the flush button, that data better be disappearing in real time. And if you're opening the tap in the kitchen, that water better be arriving in real time. So you always have real-time flows. And that's what you need to achieve across the entire organization. So don't be afraid in organizations to speak up. Have ideas, because guarantee you, if your company is struggling, we've heard the stats earlier with the majority of them not being able to really move out of any or even delivering any business value, 80% of them failing at it, only 20% succeeding. I mean, how good would it be if your company is part of the 20%, and hopefully that number grows?
Yeah, it's a staggering number. And I very much heard that last week myself. A lot of points that you just made, especially in my fractional endeavors now, it goes all the way back to what you had said, that governance can be pretty simple. And some of my very first questions I ask anybody that I'm coming in to help them with any of their AI challenges is, what are you doing? Why do you want to do it? And we just start there. And until we can unpack that, then we get into all the water cooler conversations. What are all the ideas? Have you guys been monitoring these, backlogging them, rainy day funds, whatever it might be? to make sure that you're capturing that. And then I normally teach the clients that having governance and having that set up and then having the cadence set up, now the individuals are used to taking that to a governance board, so to speak. And now as a company, you're capturing all of those ideas. You're giving them a place where that water cooler becomes actual content that you can absorb as the company. And now you can go, this is really what's happening, like on the floor, right? From my Ivy Tower on down. I didn't realize we were having this challenge or that, or, these are all ideas. I would like to say that they're all great ideas, but they're at least ideas and challenges from individuals at that point. And now you have a collections tunnel and a funnel that you can actually do something with them. And it's all so simplistic when I think about it from that side, but it's really AI has kind of forced companies, I think, to have to change the way they've thought about doing business, so to speak, right? They have to enable, tunnels for flow in the data sense so that they can have a place to project those ideas and then put safety guards around it to make sure that they're doing it properly. They're not just letting somebody run off and just spin up Copilot or spin up ChatGPT or whatever, right? And there it goes. So it's an amazing time. It's a scary time, and like you said, the 20% that we see it done well, they're not the ones that need my services at the end of the day. They're doing amazing things. I'm learning from them, and then trying to find ways to adapt that, to the other 80%. Yeah, it's such an amazing time out in the space right now. So, with that, let's go ahead and hear from our sponsors. Hello, everyone. Ryan here from Stellarhorn. Let me take a quick second to talk to you about something I see all the time. Most businesses don't actually have a technology problem, they have a leadership problem. They've got systems, tools, even teams in place, but no clear direction, no strategy, and no one connecting technology to the business. That's exactly why I built Stellarhorn Group. I help organizations through fractional CIO leadership, advisory, and project based work, bringing executive level technology leadership without the full time CIO cost. Whether it's strategy, cybersecurity, AI governance, or leading critical initiatives, it's about helping you make better decisions, reduce risk, and actually move forward with confidence. If that sounds like something your organization is dealing with, please reach out. Let's have a conversation. Stellarhorn Group, rare leadership, real results. Technology leadership without the full time CIO cost. Now that we're back, why are companies underestimating AI related risk, in your opinion?
Visibility, I think, is the most important bit, right? You can only really understand you can only really govern what you understand in detail. Look, there's some practical advice that I usually have for people, and that is spend the next 90 days on data infrastructure, not on AI tools. The winners next year are really the ones that are building the foundations for that today. Plenty of AI advancements are still going to be there. It's easy to get distracted by the next shiny thing. And if you want to make sure that, you're ultimately building a foundation that can last you, and also this carries a lot of legacy that you can carry, not just into the organization today, but for the years, potentially decades to come, is if this gets architectured well, if the underlying data infrastructure is there, if the data plumbing, as we've been talking about for quite some time now, is there, that's going to be the absolute foundation that can make your organization unbreakable in the future. So regardless what comes, you can then plug any type of AI into it, knowing that the data is always going to flow. If that's the case, it doesn't actually matter where the AI journey leads, because you're flexible enough to add any application, whether these are small bespoke applications that you're adding today for certain unique use cases. There can be AI applications that don't have to be, or if something else completely, breakthrough comes in, AI needs data. Just like we as humans need water to think clearly and come up with good ideas and not hallucinate. You see where this is going? AI needs data, access to real-time fresh data to also not hallucinate on that part. Because if it does, we as humans, we have confirmation bias as well. We want to see what's in front of us. We get the we get the answer in front of us, and we want to trust it. And various psychological studies have shown over many different years, even well before AI, that humans like to trust what machines are doing. So we just need to make sure that we don't that we turn that into a strength, that we can rely on the data, because if we can't, then all the nice initiatives and so on either roll back in the best case scenario, and in some other cases, I've got some other stories for some other day, they are, they're ultimately damaging to the business.
And I think you just gave the best explanation on hallucinations for folks out there with AI that I've heard, at least. Water in, humans need water. I mean, it makes a lot of sense with the data in. AI needs that, or yeah, eventually it just hallucinates. And I've spent many hours and many nights and more than I should have if I just did it myself instead of using AI, but also got
It's funny, right?
smarter.
You think,
Yeah.
I mean, even simple things like writing an email, it's like, can you quickly do this? And it turns out it's exactly what you didn't want, and then you're spending more time trying to tell the AI what you really wanted, rather. Yeah, it's like you don't want to wash this one plate, and instead you're spending 10 minutes rearranging the dishwasher. To yeah, we've all done it.
Absolutely. And Matt, I know that your time with us is very short, so I want to make sure that people know where they can connect with you after this podcast comes out.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Ryan. It's been an absolute pleasure. It was a lot of fun here today. So again, IntelliIPass is the kind of like the nervous system that makes your data AI ready. So we don't just move data between systems, we make sure it's trustworthy and that you've got full data lineage between them. Audit trails, compliance obviously built in as well. Yeah, companies using us, they really cut their AI project timelines by over 40% actually, because their data is already clean, it's ready, and it's not just ready for the sandbox environment, it's ready ongoingly. So yeah, my name is Matt Soltau. You can find me on LinkedIn, intellipass.io. I'm sure Ryan will provide a link somewhere. But yeah, more importantly, make sure you focus on your plumbing, focus on the readiness of the data, and good things will come from there. It's been a pleasure, Ryan. Thank you.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you taking the time to actually sit down with me. And my closing thoughts are AI isn't what makes companies successful. The foundation behind it is. And the companies that get it right are the ones that actually win. And with that, this has been Decline Invite. I'm Ryan Drumheller. And with that, meeting adjourned. Thank you so much for doing this, Matt. And good luck.
Likewise. Thank you.
Perfect. Take care.